let's get into one of the current topics at the moment with security, such as we've seen the rise of ChatGPT and AI, with ChatGPT being the friendly user face to AI, generative AI. So what are some of the opportunities and challenges for security for a company in an age of AI, which has exploded in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I love this space because it's chaos. And half of me is very excited about what it can do, and half of me is terrified. And I think that's a healthy place to be right now. You should always be, excited, but slightly wary when things change rapidly.
Yeah.
But I think there's some key things that, like my little company, we're 24 people. So we're not a huge enterprise like, that we see out there. But we've just written our first policy. And I think it's actually probably something we can share here that might be something your teams could do themselves if you're listening. Now, our policy, what we wanted to do was, well, how can we use this safely? What circumstances is it okay to use it? And are there circumstances that aren't safe yet? And why are they not safe? And so we articulated this as a very lightweight policy. Now, we're a minimum viable policy organization. So policy for us is we wrote something down in plain English and we shared it with the team.
Yep.
And for us, we decided that right now, for the moment we're in, ChatGPT and other of the LLMs and generative AIs are really great productivity tools, but they're not something that we would necessarily want to trust with vast amounts of our sensitive information. So there are tasks in your business that they can be great for. Hey, I've got this idea. Can you help me think through a strategy type thing? Fantastic. I need to do some social media posts, and I need to have 15 variations of this thing that largely shares this message. Much quicker to do it in ChatGPT than it ever would be by hand. And those are fine. That's not taking jobs off people. It's just making them way more efficient. The things that we're not comfortable doing yet are things where we're putting very commercially sensitive things into it, because that data is then used to train these open models. So anything that goes into things like ChatGPT are used to train the model behind it. So as more people use it, the data set grows, the model grows. Same with the generative images in things like Midjourney. The more images it sees, the more it can do. So the last thing you want to do is put your secret sauce into it, unless you're happy for that to somehow make its way into the algorithm itself.
Right, yeah.
The other side is you don't want to share anything that's not yours. So there's the documentation and data you have that's about your company and how it operates. And then there's the data you have that's your customers or your suppliers or somebody else in your ecosystem. That's not yours to share in an AI model. And an AI model would be sharing that data. So remember, when you sign terms and conditions with customers, when you've put arrangements in place, they haven't consented to you doing that. And so if you were going to be using any AI that was going to include their data, you need to communicate and get some form of acceptance that they understand what you're going to be doing with it and what the implications could be from them for a privacy and security perspective.
Okay.
Now, the final thing is, I think AI is great for us to use as a tool, but also it's a tool that's going to be used against us a little bit. I'll give you an example. We hire software developers. We hire marketing folks. And as part of that process, we ask them to submit written pieces or pieces of code. And we're now in an age where you can ask an AI to help you write that, much like teachers must be having the same problem at the moment.
Yep.
And so you've got to have a chat in amongst yourselves of how you approach that when you're recruiting. Is it okay for people to do this? Is it okay, but they need to tell you what they used as their prompt and which bits they used and which bits they changed? You need to face that and have a discussion. Now, the most important thing before you get to any of that, though, is you need to have this chat with yourself. Now, when ChatGPT started getting really loud a couple of months ago, I had a bit of an existential crisis, I'm going to be honest, because I started playing around with it and I started seeing what it could do. And there was this weird part of me that was like, oh, hang on, what? This can do all of these things. And what does this mean for me and my world? And I think each of us approach that slightly differently. Is it going to take this part of my job away? Can I trust this? Is it better than what I'm doing right now? Is it worse? How do I know what I'm doing here? And that feeling you have as a leader, you've got to come to terms with before you then set the tone for your organization. So you need to go play with it. You need to go and have a look. You need to get stuck in and see how it makes you feel process that, then do policy. Don't do it first.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a really interesting space to watch. I'm married to an artist, and in the art community, they have started embracing the old school art techniques like no other at the moment. Sales of paints are through the roof in New Zealand. And that's because there is something inherently valuable in imperfection, in
Yes.
the things that we create ourselves. And we need to remember that in all of this generative AI, that sometimes the thing we did ourselves can still be better. We just need to remember the value was in the bit that was uniquely us, and not necessarily that it looked as glossy as everything else. So watch the art community if you want to see how this plays out, because they're about to lose all of their income from Midjourney. So they're all adopting and adapting.